of the implementation of the General Data Protection Regulation on May the 25th, AM Best held conversations with a number of insurers and reinsurers in Europe. I'm Yvette Essen for AM Best TV, and Alvise Argenton, Senior Financial Analyst for AM Best, is here to talk about some of the challenges that companies encountered in complying with the new regulation and how they overcame these difficulties. Alvise, can we talk about some of the challenges that they encountered? What did they identify as potential difficulties?
I think there are two main categories of issues that companies have identified. The first one is the legal and operational complexity of being compliant with the GDPR. From a legal point of view, the fact that the GDPR has been implemented by a number of different jurisdictions and that a company might have to deal with these different jurisdictions makes harder for them to have a centralized management of data because of the differences that different countries might have taken in their approach to the GDPR. And at the same time, it makes it harder for data to flow from one country to another. From an operational standpoint, the more the business portfolio is skewed towards the retail segment and the higher the volume of premiums, the harder it is for companies to keep track of this data and make sure they are processed in line with GDPR indications. The second point is really about the 72-hour incident response requirement. So companies are basically asked to provide a data reporting when there is a breach within a 72-hour window. And companies are finding this particularly challenging. Therefore, planning and training ahead of the event is key in this situation.
You've mentioned a number of difficulties there and challenges. What did companies say they were doing to overcome these complexities?
Most of the companies replied that they are seeking for external advisors coming in, providing either a holistic view on how the problem should be dealt with, or maybe focusing on more sensitive areas like IT, legal, and compliance. Smaller reinsurers suggested that they can deal autonomously with narrower targets, like narrower tasks, like the mapping of data. But I think one aspect that was particularly interesting was that in some countries collaboration with the local authority was possible, which created a virtuous cycle through which companies were communicating to the authority what were the issues that were meeting in the implementation process, with the authority spreading then this information across the market, hence helping in enhancing the level of compliance with GDPR.
Now, you've been talking to companies over the period of a year or so about GDPR. In your opinion, from your research, how ready were companies for D-Day on May the 25th?
So to get a sense really of how ready they feel, we asked them. We asked companies to provide us an indication of how ready they feel on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is not prepared at all and 10 is fully prepared. Companies indicated that they feel that they are ready on an average at a 7.7, which compares favorably to the assessment that we made last year. I think it was July, where companies provided a score of 7.0. And I guess the improvement is reflective of the additional times that companies had to get ready. It is also interesting to note how the insurance segment has provided a level of preparedness that is higher than the one that we have noticed in other segments, according to researches done outside of AM Best, which suggests that probably the insurance segment, as a regulated one, was quicker to get up to speed with GDPR requirements.
Now, going forward, how is AM Best incorporating GDPR compliance into the rating process?
Among the 4 pillars that AM Best look at in its rating assessment, which are balance sheet strength, operating performance, business profile, and risk management, is the latter one that we think is mostly impacted by GDPR, and particularly in terms of the profiling of regulatory, reputational, and legal risks that the company may be exposed to. Hence, we asked them to provide us on a feedback in terms of what was the outcome of the data protection impact assessment that they carry out, and understand which are the countermeasures that they took in order to mitigate their weaknesses.
That report on the General Data Protection Regulation and companies' preparedness for GDPR compliance can be found on ambest.com. For AM Best TV, I'm Yvette Essen.